So here's how I decide on what goes into the const folder, the library folder, and the utility folder in my React and Next.js application. So for the const folder, I put in everything that is constant that are not going to be changing anytime soon. But when they do, I don't want to be going into everywhere I have used them to update it. So I just pass in a constant and export it, and then I reuse it as well. So, I find this very useful because in my experience, there's been a time where we have to update an image URL across multiple database because the design changed, and then we have to be doing find and replace, and we end up with long code reviews, like long files to change as well. So with this approach, we just have to change it in one place, and then it's going to reflect in some other places. And I also find it's very useful when I'm working with placeholder images like a blog post or for profile picture. So if I want to make any update to it, I don't have to be going to every places that I've made use of it. I'll just change it in my const file, and then it's going to reflect. And for social links, I also find this very useful because I use these brands on the footer, the hero section, and in the contact page. So I don't want to just have their icons or SVG in different file. And if a brand updates their logo later in the future, I don't want to be making updates in multiple files. I will just come to the const file and make the necessary update, and it's going to reflect in every places that I've made use of it. And one good thing about the const file is also that you can export different variants that you want. For instance, this is the social links that I use on the footer or in every other places. This is the default one. And for the hero section, I have a customized one with an arrangement. So this gives you the flexibility to specify different type of exports that you want to do while maintaining it in a single file rather than in multiple components. So that's what goes into the const folder. And for the library folder, I put things that are API client or server-side helper functions. So for instance, I put in domain data into the library folder to be used before I work on the API. Anything that has to do with like mocking the data before the API or database is ready, I put it here and name it as domain. And if this is an external API client, I also put it in the library with the name of the external API client. For instance, now Ashnode is powering my blog. So I have this function that gets my post. So, and this is an external API client. So it just makes sense to just put it in a library and then export it wherever I need it. So for my MongoDB function, I export this connection and I import it anywhere I'm creating my API route. And this makes it easier instead of having to like create the function every time I'm creating a new API route. So it's also a good practice to just have one and also like check the connection so that we don't have multiple connections for our application. And lastly, for the utility functions, I basically put things that are generic utilities, and they are not basically like tied to one thing, but then we can reuse it for multiple things. So for instance, now we have the embed. So this embed helps me to embed things like Twitter, YouTube, or any other embeds that I want to support. So, and I make use of this whenever I'm rendering my blog post that is coming from Ashnode headless CMS. So I also have a default index.ts file or JS file, anyone that you are comfortable with. So anything that is not actually tied to a specific usage goes inside the index.txt. So things like string manipulations, like array helper functions or objects helper functions can go in here. And for instance, I have these utility functions that help me to merge my Tailwind classes together based on conditions. So, and instead of having to create this utility function in every of the GSS components, I just create it once here and import it in the function and make use of it. So, and I also have this sample variable where I check if the window is undefined or it is not undefined to determine whether we're on the browser or we're on the server. So you can have a function, a variable, or any other thing that you are going to be finding helpful and reusing in your application. So that's basically how I decide on what goes into the const, the library, and the utility folder in my React or Next.js code base. So let me know, do you use this method or you have another approach to handle this in your own code base? And let me know what you think in the comment section. See you in the next one. Bye bye.